Block 1. The certainty we crave. Somewhere, a server is running a calculation. It is processing your past purchases, your browsing history, the time of day you tend to open your phone, the words you paused on, the videos you watched halfway through and then abandoned, the things you almost bought but didn't. And from all of this, it is building a prediction about what you will want next, about what you will click, about what will keep you here on this screen for another few minutes. The algorithm believes it knows you, and the unsettling thing is, sometimes it does. It recommends the song you didn't know you needed. It surfaces the article that answers the question you hadn't quite formed yet. It knows, somehow, that you are in a certain mood at a certain hour. And this feels, in a strange way, reassuring. If the algorithm knows you, then you are knowable. If your behavior is predictable, then the world is predictable. If patterns can be found in the data of your life, then your life has patterns. And patterns feel like control. We live in an age that has made a religion of prediction. Weather apps tell us the exact probability of rain at 3 p.m. Finance apps show us projected returns 30 years into the future. Health apps track our sleep cycles, our heart rate variability, our readiness scores. GPS systems recalculate our route in real time, always optimizing. Uncertainty has become the enemy, and data has become our weapon against it. We believe, deeply and perhaps unconsciously, that if we gather enough information, we can eliminate surprise. That if we optimize enough variables, we can guarantee outcomes. That if we follow the right system, life will cooperate. And yet, the diagnosis still arrives unexpectedly. The relationship still ends without warning. The career still pivots in directions no algorithm predicted. The world still delivers with regularity the thing we did not plan for. And in those moments, the carefully constructed feeling of control dissolves. And what is left underneath is something very old. Something that no app can optimize away. The raw, vulnerable, deeply human experience of not knowing what comes next. Tonight, we sit with that. Not to fix it, not to find a better system, but to discover something that ancient wisdom has always known. That the desire for control is understandable. And that releasing it, truly releasing it, is one of the most profound forms of freedom available to a human being. Let your body settle. Let the need to figure anything out dissolve, just for now. The calculations can wait. The predictions can wait. The optimization can wait. Just this. Just here. Just the breath arriving and departing without your supervision. Block 2. The ancient need for control. The desire for control is not a modern invention. It is one of the oldest impulses in the human story. Long before algorithms, human beings were pattern-seeking creatures. We looked at the sky and tried to predict the rain. We watched the behavior of animals and tried to predict the hunt. We observed the movements of stars and tried to predict the seasons. This was not superstition. It was survival. The ability to find patterns, to predict what would happen next, was one of the most powerful adaptations our species ever developed. It allowed us to plant crops at the right time, to prepare for winter before it arrived, to anticipate threats before they materialized. Pattern recognition kept us alive, and so the brain became a prediction machine, not metaphorically, literally. Neuroscientists now understand that the brain's primary function is not to perceive reality as it is, but to predict what reality will be. Every moment, your brain is running a model, a simulation of what is about to happen, and then comparing that simulation to what actually arrives, and updating the model when they don't match. The feeling of surprise is the feeling of a prediction failing. The feeling of anxiety is the feeling of the model encountering too much uncertainty. The feeling of control is the feeling of the model running smoothly, predictions confirmed, expectations met, no surprises. This is why control feels so good, and why the loss of it feels so threatening. It is not weakness, it is not a character flaw, it is the brain doing exactly what it evolved to do. But here is the problem. The brain that evolved in the savannah is now navigating a world of extraordinary complexity, a world where the variables are not lions and weather, but algorithms and economies and global pandemics, and the private decisions of 8 billion other human beings. The prediction machine is running at full capacity, and it is still not enough. Because the world is not a savannah. It is not reducible to a manageable number of variables. It is not a system that can be fully modeled, no matter how much data you collect. It is, as the Taoists would say, the 10,000 things, infinitely interconnected, endlessly surprising, fundamentally beyond the grasp of any single mind. And the harder we grip, the more clearly we feel what is slipping through our fingers. Block 3. Buddhism and the illusion of control. The Buddha sat under a tree, not because he had given up, not because he had decided that nothing mattered, but because he had finally stopped fighting. For 6 years, he had tried to control his way to enlightenment. He had practiced extreme austerities. He had starved his body. He had held his breath until he fainted. He had pushed his will against every discomfort, every doubt, every uncertainty. And none of it worked. Because enlightenment, freedom from suffering, cannot be controlled into existence. It can only be allowed. This was the first great lesson, and from it grew a teaching that has, at its center, a profound challenge to the human need for control. The Buddha identified what he called the 3 marks of existence, 3 fundamental characteristics of reality that apply to everything without exception. The first is impermanence. We have already visited this. Everything changes. Nothing holds still. The second is suffering, dukkha, the sense of unsatisfactoriness that comes from trying to hold on to what is changing. And the third is anatta, non-self, the absence of a fixed, permanent controller at the center of your experience. This third mark is the one that cuts deepest. Because if there is no fixed self, if the sense of being a stable, continuous person in control of your life is itself a construction, then what exactly is doing the controlling? Observe your own mind for a moment. A thought arises. Did you choose it? An emotion surfaces. Did you schedule it? A memory appears. Did you request it? A craving emerges. Did you manufacture it? In each case, the answer is no. The contents of the mind arise according to causes and conditions, not according to your instructions. You are not the author of your thoughts. You are more like the reader, encountering them as they appear, often surprised by what arrives. And yet, the feeling persists, powerful, convincing, deeply familiar, that there is a you in charge, steering the ship, making the decisions, in control. The Buddhist teaching is not saying this feeling is wrong exactly. It is saying it is incomplete, a partial view, a useful fiction that becomes suffering when mistaken for absolute truth. The controller is real the way a wave is real. It exists, it has effects, but it is not separate from the water, and it does not control the ocean. Block 4. The Parable of the Useless Tree. Zhuangzi told a story. A carpenter and his apprentice were traveling through the countryside. They passed an enormous oak tree, ancient, vast, its trunk too wide for 10 men to embrace, its branches spreading over an area the size of a small village. People had gathered in its shade for centuries. The apprentice was astonished. He wanted to stop and admire it. But the carpenter walked past without a glance. The apprentice ran to catch up. He asked, "Why did you not stop? That is the most extraordinary tree I have ever seen." The carpenter said, "It is a useless tree. The wood is too soft for tools, too twisted for beams, too porous for coffins. It is good for nothing. That is why it grew so large. A useful tree would have been cut down centuries ago." That night, the carpenter dreamed of the tree. In the dream, the tree spoke to him. The tree said, "You compare me to your cultivated trees, your pear trees and your orange trees, your catalpa and your ailanthus. When their fruit is ripe, they are stripped and abused. Their great branches are broken. Their lives are shortened by their usefulness. They cannot fulfill their natural span. This is true of all things. I have been trying to be useless for a long time. I have almost died many times, but now I have succeeded in being useless. This uselessness is very useful to me." The carpenter woke. He told his apprentice the dream. The apprentice said, "If it wanted to be useless, why did it grow beside a temple? People worship it. It still serves a purpose." The carpenter thought for a moment, and then he said, "Be quiet. The tree grew there by chance. If you do not understand the truth of what it told us, you are missing something." What is Zhuangzi saying? He is pointing at the exhaustion of perpetual usefulness, the cost of being optimized, the way that the drive to be productive, functional, efficient, and in control can actually shorten a life, can prevent the natural unfolding of what a person or a tree or a life is meant to become. The useless tree survived by escaping the calculations of useful men, by not fitting into anyone's plans, by being, in the most radical sense, beyond control. There is something in you that is like that tree, that refuses to be optimized, that cannot be captured by any algorithm, that is too particular, too strange, too itself to fit neatly into any prediction. That part of you is very valuable. even when, especially when, it feels most useless. Block 5. Dependent origination. There is a teaching in Buddhism called Pratyasamutpada. It is usually translated as dependent origination, or dependent arising, or interdependent co-arising. It is one of the most important concepts in the entire Buddhist canon, and it has something profound to say about control. The teaching is this: nothing arises independently. Everything that exists comes into being through a web of causes and conditions, and when those causes and conditions change, the thing changes too. And when they cease, the thing ceases. This sounds simple, but follow it to its conclusion, and it becomes extraordinary. It means there is no isolated thing in the universe, no event that stands alone, no cause that is not also an effect, no effect that is not also a cause. Everything is connected to everything else through an infinite web of mutual arising. The Buddhist image for this is Indra's net. Imagine a vast net stretching in all directions, infinitely. At every node of the net, where the threads cross, there is a jewel, and every jewel reflects every other jewel. And in each reflection, you can see all the other reflections, infinitely. Every jewel contains the entire net. This is dependent origination, and it has a very specific implication for control. If everything arises through conditions, and conditions are themselves the result of countless other conditions, then no single point in the web is in charge. Nothing is the prime mover. Nothing is the ultimate cause. Nothing is in control. Not you, not the algorithm, not the government, not the market, not the universe. Everything is happening together. Everything is co-arising. This is terrifying to the control-seeking mind. If no one is in charge, then anything can happen. If the web is truly infinite, then prediction is truly impossible. But there is another way to receive this teaching. If everything is connected, then nothing is truly isolated. If everything arises together, then you are never truly alone. If you are part of the web, then you are also held by the web. The wave does not control the ocean, but the ocean does not abandon the wave. You are always, already, held by the conditions that gave rise to you, by the air that fills your lungs without being asked, by the gravity that holds you to the earth, by the 10,000 years of human knowledge that shaped the language you think in, by the love and the luck and the loss that made you exactly who you are. You did not earn this holding. You cannot lose it. It is the condition of your existence. And knowing this, really knowing it, not just intellectually, but in the body, in the breath, is a kind of rest that no optimization can provide. Block 6. The algorithm as mirror. Let us return to the algorithm, the recommendation engine, the feed, the system that watches your behavior and reflects it back to you, amplified and curated. There is something worth understanding about what the algorithm actually is. It is not, despite how it sometimes feels, an intelligence that understands you. It is a mirror. A very precise, very fast, very relentless mirror. It shows you what you have already looked at, what you have already clicked, what you have already spent time with. It amplifies your existing tendencies. It builds a world around you that resembles the world you have already been inhabiting. And this creates a particular kind of trap. The algorithm does not challenge you. It confirms you. It does not introduce you to what you have not yet encountered. It deepens the grooves of what you already are. And so the person who is anxious receives more content that feeds anxiety. The person who is angry receives more content that feeds anger. The person who is grieving receives more content about grief. Not because the algorithm wishes you harm, it has no wishes, but because engagement is its only metric, and the emotions that drive the most engagement are often the strongest and most difficult ones. Fear, outrage, longing, envy. The algorithm does not create these emotions, but it holds them in front of you, indefinitely, polished and multiplied. And here is where the Buddhist teaching becomes directly relevant. The algorithm is showing you your attachments. Every recommendation is a data point about what you cling to. Every notification that makes your heart jump is a marker of dependency. Every scroll session that leaves you feeling worse than when you started is a lesson in the cost of upadana. Clinging. The algorithm did not create your clinging, but it has built an extraordinarily efficient environment for feeding it. And the practice, the ancient, pre-algorithmic, profoundly human practice of noticing this without judgment, is one of the most important things you can do. Not deleting your apps, not performing digital detox, but simply noticing. I reached for the phone. Why? I felt the pull of the notification. What was underneath the pull? I spent 20 minutes in a feed that left me depleted. What was I looking for? The algorithm reflects you back to yourself. That reflection, if you are willing to look at it clearly, is a teacher. Block 7. The anxiety of prediction. There is a particular anxiety that belongs to our age. Not the anxiety of scarcity. Not the anxiety of physical danger. But the anxiety of uncertainty in a world that has promised certainty. We have been told, implicitly and explicitly, that the right tools will eliminate surprise. The right insurance, the right investment, the right health regimen, the right information diet. If you optimize correctly, nothing bad will catch you off guard. And so, when something unexpected happens, when the prediction fails, it feels like a personal failure. Like you did not prepare enough, did not plan enough, did not control enough. This is a very modern form of suffering. And it is, in a very real sense, self-inflicted. Because the premise is false. Life is not a system that can be fully optimized.
The future is not a problem that can be solved with enough data.
Uncertainty is not a bug in the design of existence. It is a feature. The Taoist tradition understood this deeply. Lao Tzu writes, "Those who know do not predict. Those who predict do not know." This is not an argument against planning or preparation. It is an argument against the anxiety that comes from treating the unknowable as a failure of knowledge. The future is not hiding from you. It does not exist yet. It is being created moment by moment through the interaction of more variables than any mind can hold. And your relationship with that creative uncertainty is one of the most fundamental choices available to you. You can approach the unknown as a threat, a gap in your control that must be filled with prediction and planning and worry. Or you can approach it as what it actually is, the space in which your life is still being written. The open field in which genuine surprise is still possible. The place where something you could not have planned or predicted or optimized for might arrive. Something better than your plans. Something more interesting than your predictions. Something the algorithm, with all its data, could not have seen coming, because it was not there yet. It had not happened yet. It was waiting in the uncertainty for the conditions to be right. Block 8. Surrendering the illusion. What does it actually feel like to release control? Not the idea of releasing control. Not the philosophical understanding of why control is an illusion. But the actual, bodily, present moment experience of letting go. It feels, at first, like falling. This is important to acknowledge, because the spiritual and self-help literature tends to describe surrender as peaceful, as a gentle melting into ease. And sometimes it is. But often, the first experience of genuine release is disorienting, even frightening, because the sense of control, even when it is illusory, is also the sense of self. The feeling that I am here, I am managing, I am steering. When that feeling loosens, even briefly, the ego registers it as threat, as dissolution, as the beginning of something dangerous. This is normal. This is the brain doing its job, sounding the alarm when a core function feels compromised. The practice is to notice the alarm without obeying it, to feel the falling sensation, and to remain present within it, without grabbing for the nearest certainty. Surrender is not passive. It requires more presence, more attention, more genuine engagement than control does. Because control can run on automatic, habit, routine, the same solutions applied to the same problems. But surrender requires actually seeing what is here, actually feeling what is arising, actually responding to what is, rather than what was predicted. In the Zen tradition, there is a story about a student who asks a master, "What is enlightenment?" The master says, "When hungry, eat. When tired, sleep." The student is confused. He says, "But everyone does that." The master says, "No. When most people eat, they think about 1,000 other things. When they sleep, they resist sleeping. Enlightenment is doing the thing you are doing, fully, without the overlay of control. Just eating, just sleeping, just breathing. Without the manager hovering, without the prediction running, without the system checking whether this moment is being optimized. Just this. Block 9. Control versus influence. There is an important distinction that gets lost in conversations about surrender. The difference between control and influence. Surrendering the illusion of control does not mean becoming passive, does not mean abandoning effort, does not mean refusing to act or choose or commit. It means understanding the actual nature of the agency you have. You cannot control outcomes, but you can influence conditions. You cannot control how people respond to you, but you can influence who you are when you are with them. You cannot control the market or the weather or the health of your body, but you can influence the choices you make within the conditions you find yourself in. This is a subtler form of agency than control, but it is also a more accurate one, and in some ways more powerful, because control is brittle. It works until it doesn't, until the variable you fail to account for arrives, and the whole structure shakes. Influence is flexible. It works with conditions rather than against them. It bends like water. It finds the grain in the wood. The Taoist concept of Wu Wei, acting without forcing, is precisely this. Not the absence of action, but action that is aligned with conditions rather than imposed upon them. The farmer who works with the season rather than against it. The parent who guides rather than controls. The leader who creates the conditions for good work rather than micromanaging every step. All of these are exercises of genuine agency, real influence on the shape of things, without the illusion that the outcome is fully theirs to determine. There is a quality of lightness in this, a particular freedom that comes from acting well, fully, without attachment to results. The Bhagavad Gita, another great text from the East, puts it this way: you have the right to perform your actions, but never to the fruits of your actions. Do the work. Do it fully. Do it with care and skill and commitment. And then release the outcome to the conditions, to the web, to the 10,000 things that will determine, together, what emerges. This is not indifference. It is the deepest form of engagement, because you are no longer distracted by the anxiety of controlling what you cannot control. You are fully present to the thing itself, the work, the relationship, the moment. Block 10. The Tao of Uncertainty. Chapter 16 of the Tao Te Ching begins: attain complete emptiness. Hold fast to stillness. The 10,000 things stir about. I only watch for their going back. Watch for their going back. Not watch to control. Not watch to predict. Not watch to intervene. Just watch. Laozi is describing a quality of attention that is rare and deeply restful. The attention of someone who has stopped trying to manage the river, who has come to the riverbank not to divert the water or build a dam, but simply to be present, to observe the movement, to feel in that observation something like peace. He continues, "Things in all their multitude, each one returns to its root. Returning to the root is called stillness. Stillness is what is meant by returning to one's destiny. Returning to the root." We encountered this phrase in the impermanence episode. Here it takes on a different shade. Returning to the root is also returning to the place before the need to control, before the prediction machine switched on, before the simulation began running, before the eye that manages and steers and optimizes woke up and started its day. The root is prior to all of that. The root is the stillness underneath the movement, the quiet underneath the noise, the certainty, if we can call it that, of pure, unconditioned awareness. Before the categories, before the plans, before the algorithms, and this root is accessible right now, in this moment. Not through effort, not through achieving a certain state, but through releasing gradually the grip on everything that is not it. The thoughts are still arising. You are not stopping them, but you are watching for their going back. Each thought appearing and disappearing, like ripples on water, like the 10,000 things stirring and returning. And underneath the ripples, the water is still, the Tao is still. And you, this particular wave of the Tao, are resting in that stillness. Even now, even in the midst of all the stirring. Block 11. What you can actually hold. If we cannot control outcomes, what can we actually hold? This is not a rhetorical question. It is an honest one. And it deserves an honest answer. You can hold your attention, not perfectly, not continuously, but more than you might think. The choice of where to place your awareness, moment to moment, is genuinely yours.
The algorithm cannot force you to look.
It can only invite, and you can, with practice, become more conscious of how you respond to the invitation. You can hold your values, not as rigid rules but as a compass, the direction you want to move, even when you cannot see the destination, even when the path is unclear, even when the outcome is uncertain. You can hold your response to what arrives. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, wrote that the last of human freedoms is the freedom to choose one's attitude toward any given set of circumstances. Not what happens to us, but how we meet it. You can hold your presence, the quality of attention you bring to the people and moments and work of your life. The difference between being here and being somewhere else in your mind while your body goes through the motions. You can hold your effort, the care and skill and commitment with which you do what you do, regardless of whether it produces the outcome you hoped for. None of these are small things. Together, they constitute something very much like a life well lived. Not controlled, not predicted, not optimized, but genuine, present, engaged, alive to what is actually here, rather than to the simulation of what was supposed to be here. This is what the Eastern traditions, across their different lineages and vocabularies, are pointing at. Not the elimination of effort, not the abolition of care, but the release of the part of effort and care that is actually fear. The part that is gripping rather than giving, defending rather than opening, managing rather than meeting. What remains when the gripping falls away is something lighter, something that moves more freely, something that can actually receive what life is offering, including this quiet, this dark, this rest that your body has been waiting for all day. Block 12. The algorithmic self. There is one more dimension of control worth exploring. The control we try to exercise over how we are perceived. In the age of the algorithm, the self has become, in part, a product, a brand, something to be curated and optimized and presented for engagement. We think carefully about what we post, about the version of ourselves that we want the algorithm to amplify, about the identity we want the feed to reflect back to us and to others. This is not new. Human beings have always managed their self-presentation. The sociologist Erving Goffman described it in 1959 as the presentation of self in everyday life. We are all always performing for some audience, but the algorithm has turned the volume up, made the performance continuous, given it metrics, assigned it a number, followers, likes, engagement rate, that allows the performance to be compared and ranked. And so, the question, who am I, has become for many people entangled with the question, who does my audience think I am? The Buddhist concept of anatta, non-self, has something specific to say here. If there is no fixed, permanent self, then there is also no fixed, permanent brand. No authentic identity that must be defended and consistently presented. The self is, as we have seen, a process, a flowing, a river. And rivers don't have brands. The freedom in this is enormous. If you are not a fixed thing, you cannot be definitively misrepresented. If the self is fluid, then no single post or data point or algorithmic profile is the real you. Because there is no single real you waiting to be captured. You are richer than your data, more complex than your engagement metrics, more surprising than your behavioral patterns. The algorithm knows what you have done. It cannot know what you are capable of. It cannot know what you have not yet become. It cannot know the thought you are about to have for the first time. The feeling that will change something. The choice that will redirect the river. You are always, already, beyond its model. Block 13. Living without the safety net. The deepest fear underneath the need for control is not really about outcomes. It is about falling. If I release control, something terrible will happen. If I stop managing everything, it will all collapse. If I let go of the safety net, I will find out that there is nothing beneath me. This fear is so pervasive that many people have never questioned it, have never actually tested whether it is true, have simply organized their entire lives around preventing the fall, at great cost, the exhaustion of perpetual vigilance, the narrowing of life that comes from avoiding all uncontrolled situations, the relationships that never deepen, because depth requires vulnerability, the creative work that never happens, because creation requires uncertainty, the life that stays small because bigness feels unmanageable. In the Zen tradition, there is a concept called the Great Doubt, the willingness to not know, to inhabit uncertainty without immediately resolving it, to stay in the question rather than grasping for the answer. This is presented not as a problem to be overcome, but as a gateway. The Great Doubt opens into the Great Awakening. Uncertainty, genuinely inhabited, opens into a kind of knowing that certainty never could. Because certainty is a closed room. It is comfortable, yes, predictable, safe. But nothing new can enter. Nothing surprising can arrive. The windows are shut against the weather, and the weather, kept outside, is where the aliveness is. Living without the safety net does not mean being reckless. It means being honest about what the safety net actually provides. A feeling of security, yes, but not security itself. Because the thing you most fear, loss, change, the unexpected, will arrive regardless of your preparation. The question is not whether it will arrive. The question is what you will be when it does. Will you be someone who has spent their life in the closed room, unacquainted with uncertainty? Or someone who has practiced, slowly, the art of being present in open space? The open space is available right now, in the release of the held breath, in the softening of the clenched jaw, in the willingness to let this moment be whatever it is, without needing it to be different. Block 14. Return. Open hands. We have traveled far tonight. From the server that runs its calculations in the dark, to the Buddha sitting under the Bodhi tree, finally done with forcing. From Zhuangzi's useless tree that outlived all the useful ones, to the infinite jewels of Indra's net, each one reflecting every other. From the algorithm that mirrors our attachments back to us, to the place before the prediction machine switches on. And now, at the end of this long journey, a simple image. Open hands. Close your hands for a moment. Feel the tension, the muscles contracting, the energy required to hold the grip. Now open them. Feel the release, the slight warmth, the effortlessness. The open hand is not empty. It is available. It can receive what arrives. It can offer what is needed. It can feel the texture of what is actually here. The closed hand holds what it has. but it cannot hold anything new, and what it holds, it cannot truly feel. Because feeling requires sensitivity, and gripping numbs the fingers. This is the invitation that the Eastern traditions, across 25 centuries, keep offering. Open your hands. Not because what you were holding wasn't valuable. It was. It is. Not because you should stop caring about outcomes. Care. Care deeply. But hold it all with open hands. The plans and the hopes and the loves and the fears. The identity and the reputation and the carefully curated self. The certainty and the prediction and the safety net. Hold it, and hold it lightly, and know that you can release it any time into the open space, where it will be received by something larger than your grip, something that has been holding you all along, without your asking, without your managing, without your control. The breath that comes without your permission. The heart that beats without your supervision. The earth that holds you right now without any effort on your part. You are already held. You do not need to grip. The algorithm will still be running tomorrow. The predictions will still be made. The optimization will still be offered. But tonight, just for this quiet hour, you can be the useless tree. Too large, too old, too particular, too itself to fit into anyone's calculations. Just here, just breathing, just held. Open your hands. Feel what it is to be held without holding. To be here without managing here. To exist simply and completely, without the need to control the fact of your existence. The 10,000 things are stirring. Let them stir. You only watch for their going back. And as you watch, you too are going back. To the root. To the stillness. To the place before the prediction. Where you have already been safe. Sleep well.